Hello and welcome to 20 Minutes with Jesus. Before we go any further, allow yourself to slow down. This is not another voice competing for your attention. This is an invitation to step away from the noise. The end of a year is often loud. Even when life appears quiet on the outside, the inside can feel crowded. Thoughts pile up, emotions overlap, voices compete, expectations, memories, plans, worries, opinions, and without realizing it, the soul becomes tired not because it lacks strength, but because it lacks silence. God understands this deeply. Throughout Scripture, we see a consistent pattern. Jesus often withdrew from the crowd, not because he lacked compassion, but because he understood something essential. Constant noise weakens spiritual clarity. Presence requires space. Many people feel overwhelmed at this time of year, not because too much is happening, but because too much is being carried internally. The crowd is not always physical. Sometimes the crowd is mental. Endless thoughts, constant stimulation, a steady flow of information that leaves little room for reflection. God never calls us to withdraw out of fear. He calls us to withdraw out of wisdom. Fleeing the crowd is not about escaping responsibility. It is about protecting the soul. Jesus did not retreat because he was weak. He retreated because he was intentional. He understood that intimacy with the Father could not be sustained in constant noise. Silence is not emptiness. It is space for alignment. At the end of a year, God often invites us to step back. Not to evaluate everything aggressively, but to listen, to notice what has been shaping our hearts, to become aware of what voices we have allowed to speak too loudly. Many distractions do not appear harmful. They seem harmless, even productive. But over time, they fragment attention, they scatter focus, they leave the soul restless. God is not asking you to disappear. He is asking you to discern. Discernment begins when we notice what consistently pulls us away from peace, what fills our minds but empties our hearts, what keeps us busy but disconnected. As we begin this episode, there is no pressure to change everything at once. This is simply a moment to become aware, to notice the noise, to recognize the crowd, and to allow God to gently invite you into a quieter space. Because it is often in that space, away from distraction, away from excess voices, that clarity returns, strength is restored, and the heart learns how to rest again. There are moments when the soul becomes tired without fully understanding why. Life may look organized on the outside, responsibilities may still be met, and routines may continue. Yet something inside feels scattered. This kind of exhaustion is not always physical. Often, it is the result of prolonged exposure to noise. Noise is not only sound. Noise is constant input. Noise is mental clutter. Noise is emotional overload. The heart was not created to process endless voices without rest. When too many voices speak at once, discernment weakens. Clarity fades. Peace becomes fragile, and slowly, without intention, the soul begins to operate from reaction instead of direction. This is why Scripture repeatedly shows us Jesus withdrawing from crowds. Jesus did not avoid people because he lacked compassion. He withdrew because he understood that intimacy with the Father could not be sustained in constant stimulation. Before teaching, before healing, before major decisions, he chose solitude. Silence was not an escape for him. It was preparation. The crowds were not always hostile. Many were curious. Many were needy. Many were sincere. But even good crowds can drain the soul when there is no space to replenish strength. This is an important truth for us. Not every distraction is sinful. Not every voice is harmful. But too many voices, even good ones, can still overwhelm the heart. At the end of a year, this becomes especially relevant. Reflection increases. Expectations rise. Plans multiply. Opinions become louder. And without realizing it, the inner world becomes crowded. Thoughts overlap. Emotions compete. Attention fractures. God never intended for your heart to live in a constant state of input. When the soul lacks silence, it begins to confuse urgency with importance. Everything feels equally pressing. Everything demands attention, and discernment suffers. You may find yourself responding quickly without prayer, deciding without peace, or feeling restless even during moments meant for rest. This is the cost of unexamined noise. Fleeing the crowd, in a spiritual sense, does not mean withdrawing from life. It means creating boundaries around what shapes your inner world. It means choosing what deserves access to your attention and what does not. Jesus modeled this consistently. He knew when to engage and when to step away. He did not allow constant demand to dictate his pace. He moved according to the Father's direction, not according to external pressure. This teaches us that discernment requires distance. When everything feels urgent, stepping back allows perspective to return. Silence creates room for the heart to hear God again. Not in dramatic ways, but in steady, grounding ones. Peace often speaks quietly. Many people struggle with silence because it exposes what noise has been covering. Silence reveals fatigue. It reveals fear. It reveals unmet expectations. And yet, God meets us there. Silence is not punishment. It is invitation. God invites us to notice what we have been carrying, to recognize what has been shaping our thoughts without permission, to gently release what no longer serves the life He is forming in us. At this time of year, you may feel pressure to evaluate everything quickly, to make sense of the year, to prepare perfectly for what comes next. But God often invites us to do something simpler first, to quiet the noise. When the crowd fades, clarity returns. When distractions lessen, sensitivity increases. When noise decreases, peace strengthens. This does not happen instantly. Silence can feel uncomfortable at first. The mind may race. The heart may resist. But with time, stillness becomes a refuge. It becomes a place where the soul remembers how to breathe again. God does not shout over noise. He waits for space. Fleeing the crowd is an act of trust. It says, I believe that what I gain in silence is more valuable than what I lose in stepping away. It acknowledges that rest is not laziness and solitude is not weakness. As this episode continues, allow yourself to consider where noise has been shaping your inner world. What voices have become too influential? What distractions have quietly drained your peace? You are not required to remove everything at once. Discernment is gentle. It begins with awareness. And awareness is the first step toward alignment. God is not asking you to disappear. He is inviting you to listen. And often, it is in the quiet, away from the crowd, that the soul finds clarity, strength, and direction again. At some point, the soul begins to feel the cost of constant stimulation. It does not happen suddenly. It happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. The heart becomes restless. Thoughts become fragmented. Peace feels harder to access. And yet, life continues as usual, making it easy to ignore what is happening inside. This is why God invites us to step away from the crowd. Fleeing the crowd is not about isolation. It is about discernment. It is the decision to protect what is sacred within you. Your ability to hear God, to recognize His presence, and to remain emotionally and spiritually grounded. When the soul is constantly exposed to noise, it loses sensitivity. Everything feels urgent. Everything feels equally important. And discernment becomes difficult. The heart reacts instead of responding. It absorbs instead of choosing. Jesus understood this deeply. Even when surrounded by genuine need, He regularly withdrew. Not because people were unimportant, but because intimacy with the Father was essential. Silence was not a break from His mission. It was what sustained it. This teaches us something crucial. Spiritual clarity requires intentional distance from noise. Noise does not only come from the outside. Often, the loudest crowd is internal. Unfinished conversations, lingering regrets, anxieties about the future, expectations placed upon us by others and by ourselves. Without silence, these inner voices grow louder and more demanding. God does not compete with noise. He waits for space. Many people fear solitude because it exposes what noise has been covering. In silence, unresolved emotions surface. Fatigue becomes noticeable. Questions we avoided begin to rise. But silence is not where we are overwhelmed. It is where God meets us honestly. Silence reveals what needs healing. Stillness reveals what needs attention. Solitude reveals what needs surrender. Fleeing the crowd means acknowledging that constant input has consequences. It shapes how we think, how we feel, and how we make decisions. Without realizing it, we begin to live reactively, responding to demands, opinions, and expectations without checking whether they align with God's direction. This is spiritually exhausting. God invites us to a quieter way of living, a way that values depth over urgency, discernment over reaction, and presence over performance. This way does not remove responsibility. It restores perspective. When we step away from distraction, something important happens. We begin to recognize what truly matters. The soul regains clarity. Priorities realign. Peace slowly returns. But this process takes time. At first, silence may feel uncomfortable. The mind resists slowing down. The heart searches for stimulation. This discomfort is not a sign that solitude is wrong. It is a sign that the soul has been overstimulated for too long. God is patient in this process. He does not demand instant stillness. He invites gradual awareness. One moment of quiet, one intentional pause, one choice to step back instead of engaging with everything at once. Fleeing the crowd is rarely dramatic. It is often quiet and unseen. It looks like choosing not to respond immediately, turning off unnecessary noise, limiting voices that drain peace, creating space to listen before deciding. These choices shape the inner world. When the heart learns to value solitude, it becomes less dependent on external validation. It no longer needs constant affirmation or stimulation to feel secure. Confidence becomes quieter. Faith becomes steadier. This is spiritual maturity. God does not call us to withdraw permanently. He calls us to withdraw regularly, to return to the crowd renewed, not depleted, to engage life from a place of alignment, not exhaustion. As this year comes to a close, this invitation becomes especially meaningful. The world grows louder with reflection, expectation, and pressure. God gently invites you to step aside, not to escape life, but to prepare your heart. You do not need to carry every voice into the next season. You do not need to respond to every demand. You do not need to remain available to everything that asks for your attention. Some distance is holy. When the crowd fades, God's voice becomes clearer. When distractions lessen, peace strengthens. When silence is chosen, the soul remembers how to rest. This is not withdrawal born of fear. It is wisdom born of trust. God knows that what you give your attention to will shape your direction, and He cares deeply about where your life is heading. That is why He invites you, gently, patiently, to step away from what overwhelms and draw near to what restores. Fleeing the crowd is not losing something. It is gaining clarity, and clarity is what prepares the heart to move forward with peace, purpose, and discernment. Let us enter this moment of prayer gently, without hurry and without expectation to perform. God, we come before you aware of how much noise has surrounded us. Not only external noise, but the noise within. Thoughts that have raced, emotions that have overlapped, concerns that have followed us even into moments meant for rest. You see how stimulation has crowded our hearts, and how difficult it has been to find stillness. Today, we pause. We acknowledge that we were not created to carry constant input without interruption. We were not meant to process endless voices without rest, and yet, so often, we have allowed distraction to shape our inner world without noticing its cost. God, we bring you our tired minds and restless hearts. Where our attention has been scattered, gently gather us. Where our thoughts have been fragmented, bring clarity. Where our emotions have been overwhelmed, bring order and peace. Teach us how to step away from what drains us without guilt. Teach us how to choose silence without fear. Teach us how to recognize that stillness is not avoidance, but wisdom. God, we confess that sometimes we have mistaken busyness for faithfulness. We have remained constantly available, constantly connected, constantly responding, and in doing so, we have neglected the quiet spaces where you speak most clearly. Forgive us for filling silence too quickly. Forgive us for fearing what stillness might reveal. Forgive us for ignoring our need for rest in your presence. We invite you now into the quiet places of our hearts. Meet us in the silence. Meet us in the pauses. Meet us in the moments when we stop striving and simply remain with you. God, help us discern which voices we need to release. Which distractions no longer serve the life you are forming in us? Which patterns of constant stimulation have weakened our spiritual sensitivity? Give us courage to create boundaries that protect our peace. Give us wisdom to limit what enters our inner world. Give us discipline to choose presence over noise. As this year comes to a close, we surrender the need to carry everything forward. We release expectations, pressures, and demands that have weighed heavily on us. We trust you to guide us into the next season with clarity and peace. God, anchor our hearts in you. Let silence become a refuge, not a threat. Let solitude become a place of renewal, not loneliness. Let stillness restore what noise has drained. We choose to trust that what we gain in your presence is greater than what we leave behind in stepping away from distraction. We believe that clarity, strength, and peace are found when we draw near to you. Thank you for meeting us here. Thank you for restoring our sensitivity. Thank you for leading us gently, not forcefully. We place our hearts, our attention, and our inner world in your hands, trusting that you will guide us into a quieter, steadier, and more aligned way of living. Amen. As this episode comes to a close, allow yourself to remain in this quieter posture for a little longer. There is no need to rush back into noise or stimulation. What has been stirred here is meant to settle gently, not be forced into immediate action. Choosing to step away from the crowd is not a rejection of life. It is a reordering of attention. It is learning that your soul has limits, and honoring those limits is an act of wisdom, not weakness. God never intended for you to live constantly surrounded by voices, demands, and expectations without space to breathe. Silence is not emptiness, it is permission. When you begin to choose quiet moments intentionally, something shifts inside. The heart becomes less reactive. Thoughts slow down. Discernment sharpens. You begin to notice what truly matters and what has been draining you unnecessarily. You may realize that some distractions felt harmless, even helpful, but over time, they stole your peace. You may notice that some voices shaped your decisions more than you realized. Awareness like this is not meant to bring guilt. It is meant to bring freedom. God is gentle in this process. He does not ask you to remove everything at once. He invites you to listen, to discern, and to make space. One quiet moment at a time. One boundary at a time. One intentional pause after another. As you move forward, remember that solitude is not meant to isolate you. It is meant to restore you so that when you return to life's demands, you do so from a place of clarity instead of exhaustion. God meets you in the quiet so that you can walk with strength in the world. You are allowed to protect your attention. You are allowed to limit access to your inner world. You are allowed to choose what deserves your focus. These choices do not make you unavailable to others. They make you available to God. If this season has felt overwhelming, consider this an invitation to simplify. Not everything needs your response. Not every voice needs your agreement. Not every moment needs to be filled. Some space is sacred. As the year comes to a close, carry this truth with you. Stepping away from distraction is not losing something valuable. It is making room for what sustains you. God's voice becomes clearer when noise fades. Peace grows stronger when silence is honored. Continue to create space in your days. Even brief moments of stillness matter. They recalibrate the heart. They remind the soul that it is not alone, not forgotten, and not required to carry everything at once. May you move forward with greater discernment. May your attention be guided by wisdom. May your life become quieter in the ways that bring peace and stronger in the ways that matter most. And as you continue this journey, remember, when you choose stillness with God, you are not stepping away from life. You are learning how to live it with clarity, depth, and rest.